Okay, we're back. Forgot about this show. It's been a few months since I've done this. I think like 6 months. Wanted to bring another, personable guy on, another interviewer. So really wanted to go out of the box, and so I just brought in another ADC. Plus, his name starts with R. So really branching out on this show here. Me thinking just all right, just another ADC that'll do. Might as well call it the ADC show. But today's guest, we've got Mr. Rhythm, formerly of multiple teams. He was just on Rich Gang recently. Good Chi for, I guess, a couple weeks, but maybe some people know him from NLC. He was on Venomcrest's UKEL team at the beginning of this year. Mr. Rhythm from the UK, how are you doing today, sir?
Hello. I'm not doing too bad.
Okay.
How about you?
I'm doing good as well. It's good for asking. Also, just for all the listeners out there, remember, if a UK person says they're not doing too bad, that does mean they're doing good. Because the classic we get the classic UK emphasis on things like that. Yeah. If they're like, yeah, I'm all right, that means they're doing really bad. So, it's always good to have the kind of translation in. I don't even know if any of my viewers are American because it's European stuff, but, at least it makes it easier for me. I think just starting out, just, kind of being casual. You're an up-and-coming player, and I think you're a great player who's got plenty of potential. Just, start by telling the world a little bit of just who you are, just how long you've been playing League, and just who you are as a person.
So I'm Rhythm, or Josh. I've been playing League, I want to say 14 years now, since Season 2, about the end of Season 2. I've been playing for quite a while. Started out casually, same as most people. I think I get mixed up on the seasons, but I think it was Season 4 or Season 5 I first hit Challenger, so I will have been 14, maybe just turned 15 around that time. After a bunch of different things, I got offered a contract when I was younger, but I didn't take it because I was more focused on trying to get back into school. Took a break from, I don't know, people tell me that I missed the Ardent season. So if that's a marker point, then people will probably know what I'm talking about. Came back, I want to say, started playing like Season 9, Season 10, and then ever since Season 10, I've been kind of in and out of teams, I think, trying to play either semi-professionally or full-on professionally. But I've been in and around the scene for quite a while at this point. So,
all right. That actually gives me, before we start kind of with the more recent stuff, that'll actually kind of let me ask you about the earlier days of League. Well, first of all, you said you missed the Ardent season, which is good because that was, a lot of people say that's one of the worst times in League, which it kind of was. But, going back, all the way back to kind of the early days of League, kind of pre-map change, the season 2, 3, 4 days. So you said you would hit Challenger around, season 4 or 5, because that's where I started. I love the kind of old game, and you were, pretty young as I was as well. Is there anything you kind of miss about the old days of League? Anything you kind of, want to be brought back? Is there like a specific role you played back then you can't really play now that's a little different now?
So I played pretty much everything. I played whatever I had fun with, which meant that I would go through stages where I was either one-tricking like Riven or Vayne or Lee Sin or Yasuo or Lucian, or basically anything that's like super high mechanical, like, flashy stuff. I enjoyed doing that. I think if I had to say if there was anything I was specifically missing, is probably the game's gotten slowly more and more team dependent, which I've never had an issue with. Except for when playing solo queue, it does feel very monotonous. You tend to feel like you can tell whether or not the game is won or lost very early on,
right?
Just by not what's gone on specifically in the game, but the mentality of the players that you have on your team, or just how one like event has like made everybody, say you have a bad like 2v2 on top side or a bad grubs fight, everybody's kind of like turned off from the game, and you as an individual, be you playing ADC, jungle, mid, it doesn't really matter. You have a much harder time, whereas if you're playing, I don't know, old school Riven or like OGZ or any of these like crazy picks, then you probably would have had a better time like solo carrying. I know some people prefer the more team orientated thing, but I think there was more of a healthy mix between solo queue and professional play. now all kind of gels together, and a lot of the same feeling you get from playing solo queue, get in like I would say low level comp, but like in the less organized levels of competitive play.
I really like that answer. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Certainly, the kind of earlier game was more kind of individual based. I don't think people, kind of all know about, because you have one kind of mastery system now. People didn't know like all the different runes and masteries you can kind of experiment with.
I forgot about old runes completely.
Yeah.
Like it was a completely different game. I think people underestimate just how different. I know that there are a lot of people have been talking about like having like a classic League of Legends, like this classic World of Warcraft. But it was genuinely a completely different game. There's very little remnants left of it other than champions and a few items, essentially.
Yeah, it really is different, especially after they changed the items a few years ago. It does feel like it's kind of slipping further away from what it was, kind of the more kind of Wild West days and a little bit more kind of, maybe you could say like just more organized game. But yeah, I mean, that's an interesting way to put it, just, just kind of about the kind of connection between solo queue and competitive. On top of what you just said about you were offered a contract relatively young, you don't have to speak too much about that just from a detail standpoint, but just talk about that because I'm sure you were still a pretty young kid at the time. And was it kind of anything at all that contract was to like entice you from maybe, putting school to the side and going more professionally? Or was it just like, no, I'm not either good enough yet, or this isn't sustainable enough where I have to stay in school?
So for me, I don't mind, because a lot of people who know me, like I'm quite open about this. I spent a lot of my time, like my younger years, out of school because I was in and out of hospital with a health condition.
Oh, okay.
Which meant that the contract that I was offered was around about the same time that I was getting well enough to go back into school full time.
Okay.
And it wasn't really like my decision, if that makes sense, and which I was completely fine with. It made perfect sense from my parents' point of view as well. I can't imagine. I don't even think this will be on the books for them because it was so long ago, and it was the scene was completely different. Like you had Challenger Series back then, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It was either during the period where Challenger Series was still there, or it was the season after. I'm not sure entirely when, with timeline wise.
I mean, if it was at least pre-COVID, it was probably around the It
was way. We're talking like we are talking like either somewhere between 2014 and 2016.
Yeah, certainly the Challenger Series then would definitely have been around.
Yeah. So this was from, I think it was FTW, which is a Portuguese organization. Okay. And it was directly from, I think, the guy, I don't know if he's still involved. He might be coaching in LEC now. Owner. I think he was the one who offered me it. It was just, again, things work very differently then, where now you go through like more organized trials and everything. It was more just, I played solo queue with him. I think he liked the way that I played like Tristana or something. I was under a different name. I think it was Dark Yoshi at the time or something like that. I'm not sure I remember. But played solo queue with him. He was like, oh, how old are you? I said how old he was. He was like, oh, you're really young. I think, if you could come and be a substitute, yada, 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 all of this. But that was basically the first time I ever even really thought about playing professionally. Up until then, it was just, I enjoy playing the game. I like playing in harder like games because I come from playing sports. I played rugby, I played hockey, I played cricket. We didn't do much football at my school. I know, shocker for the UK, but we didn't do much football.
I mean, you got all the other ones in there. I mean,
we got all.
Yeah, you got rugby, which rugby's just starting to become a thing in the US. Cricket's still a bizarre unknown. I know what cricket's like, but most people don't.
Maybe this is controversial. I'm not much of a cricket guy. I played every sport, so I couldn't really miss out on one. But like, definitely enjoyed rugby and hockey, and I did play football outside of school as a goalkeeper. But so I came from playing sports, and what originally made me want to play a little bit more league, right? I like I said, I think I started end of season 2. That was around about the time where I was still healing from I fractured dislocated my elbow, so I couldn't play rugby. I think I've missed a rugby tour with my school or something, and I needed something competitive to kind of like fill that void. So that's when I played a bunch of League. I think I went from bronze to platinum, I think, from playing like 200, 300 games. But it all happened in a relatively short space of time just because I was playing so much, because I had a lot more free time than anybody else my age at that point in time.
That's even more interesting because you actually have a very similar story to so many professionals now. They were going to be like top footballers, and then they broke something, and then they ended up playing a bunch of League, and then that's what they got. I mean, that happened to Reckless, that happened to Olaf Meister in CS. I think Kuroki in Dota 2, same thing. So a very common story. So it's very very funny. You fit that model really well. All right, so fast forwarding a bit. Kind of where the Leaguepedia starts, and I'm sure it's going to be wrong, but where it starts is like right at the beginning of 2021, which I'm guessing is at least around maybe when you came back. Maybe it's at least maybe a bit wrong, but I know it gets a little bit more serious after that. But was this kind of like around the era that you were talking about coming back? Was it like a little bit before then? Kind of talk me through that time period.
Yeah, so I think timeline-wise, that would probably have been about I want to say half a year to a year. So if we're talking about the start of my Leaguepedia, I think I do get the years mixed up just because I feel like it's very difficult to kind of keep track of things when you're not in like a super organized, like schooling structure or university structure or whatever, right?
Of course, and COVID just messed up all of our brains. So like the time from like 2020 to 2022 just is like all just weirdly meshed together. So it's understandable to forget some things.
Yeah, but I think it started with, so I was, as I'm sure you can guess with the way I was describing it, I'm a very competitive person. And I spent the formative years in the schooling system in a private school where everybody is super, super competitive, trying to get top grades, and then later on top universities. And I was still of that mind. So I was like dead set focused on getting to Oxford to study law.
Okay.
And I managed to get through to interview process at Brasenose, I believe, which is the top college within Oxford for law.
Okay.
Which does speak to my ego a bit, where it's like, if I had gone for a different, less prestigious college for law, I may have actually gotten in, but that's a completely different thing.
I mean, I don't think there's much more prestigious, maybe Harvard, but like that's it in the world of law. It's like you got Oxford in there, so quite the step up, certainly being competitive on that front.
Yeah, so Oxford has like different colleges within like the university itself, which each specialize in different subjects. The one I applied to, Brasenose, was the one that is, at least I think it's Brasenose, it's been a while, but is the one that specializes the most in law. So I consider it an accomplishment now in hindsight to have made it through to interview process. But I will be honest, I was not like mentally in the right place to be able to do my best with that interview, which is not as an excuse, but is rather just as a context thing, where it's like, I think it's for the best that I didn't end up getting the place at Oxford, because I don't think it would have been right for me to have gone to university at that time. But it was after that I was like, okay, well, if I'm not doing anything, if I'm taking at least a gap year before I make a decision on what I'm doing after this, that's when I start playing like heavily again. So I think I want to say 2019, 2020, but again, COVID just kind of messes with everything. So it will have been about a year afterwards. So I think the first one on there would probably say like Semper Paratus or something. But you correct me if I'm wrong there.
It is the one, the first one on there, yes. Before we mention that point, though, I want to actually say, because I forgot about this. You talked about Owner before from your old team. He's the current coach of SK actually right now. So he's Spaniard coaching that. Just the fact that there's that crossover of, I mean, 10 years ago, and he's still coaching. That's quite the funny coincidence.
I think at the time he was. I mean, I think he was a player for a really, really long period of time. I genuinely won't have interacted with him outside of solo queue since then. Because after that season, or it was either next season, that's when I went back to school and I just stopped playing completely for a long period of time. So But like you said, it is interesting. I think it does go to show that a lot of people who have been in the scene, like properly in the scene, like be a player or a coach, will transition into some other area within the scene. So
Yeah, it certainly happens a lot. I mean, you get a lot of players, even if they were the best or weren't the best, passing over from coaches to owners of teams further. I mean, obviously Carlos of G2's, Ocelot's the most famous one. At least a lot of kind of involvement in the scene. As you said, yeah, the first team on here is Semper Paratus. Now, you also right after that. I mean, this was 14 days, so not a huge excursion, at least according to Leaguepedia. And then right after is London Academy, and that's really your kind of early 2021 period. I mean, I'm guessing London Academy was a British team. Was Semper Paratus as well? And kind of talk to me about kind of how these kind of early teams were like.
So Semper Paratus was just it was a friends team. It was very casual. I don't think it was like anything serious in any way, shape, or form. I know we attempted to have it be serious, but I don't think it ever really properly got off the ground. I know that I'm pretty sure he was the coach at the time. He's a good friend of mine. He's been coaching in GLL. He was my coach for later down the line on Zerolag. Mm-hmm. But it was more of just a casual team that we were trying to get off the ground. A little bit akin to what I'd imagine like some of the teams in UKEL are like right now.
Okay. Did you find these kind of you just kind of chill about this? Were you not thinking any further just about like further professionalness or semi-professionalness, or were you just kind of looking just to have some fun?
I think it was mostly just, and this is the way that I've treated it for quite some time, is if I don't feel that I'm personally ready, be it like currently at that point in time, or I feel like I need to get better or work on something, like I'm very like much an all-in person. Mm-hmm. So I'm either gonna be all in, it's like, okay, I'm ready to go, like get me on the best team possible, I can dedicate all the time, or it's like I'm not ready, I want to go and play solo queue until I'm higher rank or whatever. So I think at the time I would imagine I would probably have been like, okay, like I want to like play at least semi-professionally, but I need to get better. I need to figure out, because I don't even know what role is on there, for example, because I've played both top and ADC, so it might be either of them.
It says ADC on here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I probably played both for them at some point in time. But yeah, it wasn't that I wasn't looking to play, at least semi-professionally. It's just I was probably focusing on either real life stuff or playing more solo queue. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, only one of the teams it says you were a top laner here for. I'll kind of get to that more and kind of ask you about the kind of difference in roles. But yeah, then there's a break, about a year, and then kind of May 2022, you joined Zerolag Esports, which is a mostly Greek team, which I think is quite the interesting jump. But they're actually a relatively well-known org. So kind of how did that kind of come about?
So I'll just go, just because you also mentioned about London Academy, and I hadn't spoken about that. That was probably the first time I was like had any sort of like presence in the scene, even if albeit a very small presence. Was I think the org was running a community like kind of like up and coming showcase tournament, like mixed tournament that you could apply for.
Okay.
I went and did that, and I think the team I was on won. I think I'm still friends with a couple of the players that was on that team. And then after that, we were meant to officially like do what was it called, NLC? I could have sworn that there was another name. It was UK LoL or something. There was another name for there was another name for the UK league at that point in time, where we did the qualification for that. But I'm pretty sure we played against. Do you remember? I don't know how long you've been around the UK scene for, but do you remember there was? I think it was X7. Was that the name of the team? That had a bunch of money, like an insane amount of money.
Sounds familiar. Yeah, so that might be them.
Yeah, the guy was. So I met the owner of that team at LAN, and the guy made a lot of money from crypto, I think, and he was he put a lot of money into the team, and I think even if we were at our best, we would never beat the roster that he put together for that like qualification tournament. But yeah, that was probably my first like inroads into the city. Like I got to meet a couple of coaches, like actually see a little bit more of the structure, albeit like weak structure at this level of esports. But it was good experience. So I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to talk about that. Otherwise, I can go straight to Zerolag as well.
No, that's great insight. I didn't realize that was so. There was a guy throwing that much money around. Once we talk about a couple other teams, notably one we're going to get to soon, I'll kind of ask you more about kind of ownership and structure and kind of UK League of Legends and just kind of European League of Legends in general, because there's always sometimes shady stuff going on. In my interview with Rusty Sniper, he kind of highlighted some aspects of maybe some contracts not being honored or some paychecks not being sent. So hopefully that hasn't happened with you, but you never know. We'll see what teams are like. But yeah, tell me all about Zerolag.
So Zerolag was primarily because of Semper Paratus. The coach I had, and as a friend of mine, Varsos, was looking for players, and he was. We enjoy working together, and he appreciates like me as a player. And he said, I think, even for this go around, because I think Zerolag was potential on the table a few different times, but he said that whatever role, like even beyond top and ADC, like I'd like you to be a part of the project. So that's how that came about, and that was my first like proper team to be a part of, because obviously that was Div 1 GLL, and this was before the split between major and minor division like teams in Europe, which I still don't know exactly how the split works. I think there's changes that are coming up for like what is major and what is minor like soon, but yeah, so that was before the split. So everything was just blanket. If you're Div 1, you're Div 1. So
I mean, the team, I mean, just looking at the players, I mean, it's mostly Greek players. I don't know if you only played with Greek players, you played some other Europeans, but in general, obviously, when you play, you're playing mostly with UK players and you play with them just from, pub lands or just, general friend teams. Going to different, European teams can be a little different, not just from like a language standpoint, hearing that more, but just from a culture standpoint. Every country works a little different. Obviously, more Eastern Europeans and Western Europeans. The culture just diverges just a little bit. Just sometimes it makes it harder for players to kind of connect. And as a coach, I've sometimes had that where just multiple players, different regions. Sometimes just as hard to fit everyone in. Was that ever a trouble for you? Was it ever kind of trouble at the very beginning to work with different Europeans?
Let me have a look. I'll bring it up myself just so I know what rosters I'm looking at and I don't get players mixed up. I don't remember the first go around. Yeah, the first go around, I wouldn't say that it was an issue with, because we did not perform or achieve as much as we wanted to with that roster, because I had like very high hopes, and in fact this was when I started to understand that as a player, it's very hard to get like the zoomed out perspective when building a roster. Because in my mind at that point in time, it was like, okay, like I like everybody on the roster. I think we're like all very talented players. This should work really, really well. But it didn't. I think functionally, roster fit, even at like lower levels of play, is something that is like overlooked a lot. I think obviously once you start to play with more money and you get into the higher like LEC, LCS, then that is something that is considered more heavily. So you don't end up with issues like that as frequently. But no, I wouldn't say culturally there was too much of an issue, but that might just be because I'm like quite easy to get along with. I don't think I've ever had issues with like getting along on a personal level. Any issues I've had with teammates or coaching staff has always been like professional, like from a professional standpoint on disagreeing with the way that things should be done. but it is different. It is different going from like playing with, because I would have been going from playing with UK players to Greek players. But I think it's no different to playing in any team environment and then just having different types of people. Right? If you interact with enough different types of people, you tend to be able to deal with the differences a little bit easier.
It's a good way to put it. Certainly, I've had to feel some of that just from being the American coming over here and dealing with all that. And sometimes I do get accents. People say like words that I'm like, I need to hear that again, and it's all different. But I mean,
It could be worse. Yeah, I was just gonna say it could be worse specifically with like American culture to European culture. Because if you go like American culture to UK culture, sure, there's differences, but it's not as like glaring.
Certainly the most similar, yeah.
Yeah. If you go like UK like culture interacting with other European cultures, it's all right. It's not too bad. Obviously, there will be differences, but I just might not be the best like indicator as to the way that it's meant to go.
Fair enough.
Because I have had like friends say that they've had issues dealing with not understanding like this, that, or the other. Like I played with, like for example, I played with Air with Venomcrest in UKEL, and that was completely fine. And he's Chinese. Like there's no breakdown. I think I've played with lots of different scrims or trials with Korean players. I think sure there might be different ways in which you interact, like outside of the game, but when it comes down to league, like league is league. Like I think it's people overestimate the differences. If you have a good understanding of the game, and we're talking like purely from like a gameplay standpoint, you should be able to get along. Obviously, you want to foster a great team environment if you can, but if you're willing to put in the legwork, I like, and that's from both parties. Player to player, coach to player. Like I think you can, for the most part, come to like a reasonable level of interaction, like during a split. It might take time though. Like I know that I've had situations where it's taken a lot of time for me to understand where a player is coming from. If they are like getting super tilted in scrims or getting like very like loud on voice comms. If I don't have the conversation with them, I might think it's because they don't like me, they don't like the team, they don't like whatever, right? They don't like the draft. But if you actually have the conversation, so I think it's about having the right conversations, and that's when coaching is so important. Like you need to have someone actually foster those conversations.
Wow. I don't think you could have given a better answer to that question. That was excellent.
You're more than welcome to stop me if I'm rambling as well.
No, I mean this is about I mean you say as much as you feel. This is about you and wherever you want the conversation to go. So just feel free to that. I mean that was just a great answer. Obviously as a coach, I feel exactly the same way. Where it is just about having these conversations and just sometimes players don't always want to do the work. I think people don't always understand what the work is when you're like on a team, and part of that quote unquote work is building the relationships with people.
Is the social dynamic.
And it doesn't always have to be friends with the person, but you have to at least understand them more, talk with them more. Have like you said, have the right conversations. And I think, as long as people are willing to do that, it all works well. I have, been with some, people from European countries, and I've heard other things that not everyone seems to. It's not always normal in some cultures to have the conversations. Not going to say who or whatever, but I think everyone is a little different. Like you said, league is league, and if you're just committed to the game, then you can be committed to having those conversations as well. Now, this is something I'm really interested in asking you in because you join Hell's Zerolag, you're there for a bit, then you leave, go somewhere for a bit, and then come back as a sub until like the beginning of 2023. But the place you go for a little bit is Ruddy Esports for a total of 3 days, an exciting 3 days. Now, Ruddy Esports, we obviously know because of DonJake posting some interesting Twitter videos. We don't need to go into those, but you know,
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
I'd consider him a good friend.
yeah. I don't think he's done UKEL stuff before. I don't think I've ever interacted with him. There's a guy who works for him, who like would do some of the production stuff, who I know really well. So yeah, I don't know much about him, you know, at least from a personal level. But I mean, this is 3 years ago. This is right as the team starts. I mean, 3 days, nothing could have happened. But like, how about just talking about, you know, what maybe early Ruddy Esports was like and what DonJake was like?
Let's clear things up first.
Okay.
Because this is just an issue with like the archiving of stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 days. So this was before Ruddy Esports was Ruddy Esports.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really anything at that point in time. It was trying to get stuff off the ground. This was during Insomnia. So this was, let me just check which Insomnia. It was I-68. Before Insomnia went defunct, and now Insomnia is back. So for anyone who doesn't know what Insomnia is, it is the biggest UK LAN. So that were basically Ruddy, and Ruddy primarily was just DonJake at that point in time, right? So Jake had sponsored a roster for us to go and play under like Ruddy's name
At Insomnia. Yeah. And by the way, for anyone, like Insomnia is a LAN that goes like, at least for League, it goes like, you know, back to like 2012. It's, you know, from it seems like it existed even further before League, but yeah.
It is, yeah. So it's like, if anyone knows TF2 and the TF2 comp scene, it is the biggest TF2 like LAN, right?
Okay.
So that if it comes from TF2, it goes way back before League was even a thing. Like 68 means it was the 68. I believe it was the 68th like Insomnia LAN. Okay. So that kind of tells you how long it's been going on for. But yeah.
So yeah, it was.
I can talk.
Yeah, a quick thing
I can talk a little bit more about it because it was a fun time. Like it's never not a fun time when you're doing anything with Jake.
Well, also just to say, funny that cool that LAN. 68. I'm just looking at it right now. There's actually a lot of, you know, there's a lot of people from UKEL we'd know. I mean, there's Phrase.
Oh, sorry. This was this would have been this will have been 69.
Okay,
was the Ruddy one because I did two Insomnia LANs where I played. 68, I was with Verdant. Actually.
Okay.
This is the weird thing. It's like I don't even know if that's on there properly. So
it is.
Go back,
it's not on your Leaguepedia, but I'm doing the looking right now. It's on.
Yeah, when you look through it, this is the thing. Anyway, right? The Verdant one that was also really fun. I played with Torok when Torok wanted to play a little bit more. I believe he is coaching. I don't know where he's coaching right now, but he's coached all sorts. He coached Giant X for a bit, but that was when he was playing. That was more of a fun team. Verdant also sponsored us to go and play. But the Ruddy one was kind of the bigger one because I think that was one of the last ones before Insomnia went away and now is back. But
yeah, not too many. Yeah, it goes to 72, and then there's one in Egypt, whatever that was, and then it stops early 2024.
It will be back next year, but it had been gone for a little bit. So but so that roster that we had on for Ruddy was like a really, really, it was a fun roster because I don't know if you know Prosper. Actually, Prosper is playing in UKEL now, is he?
He is playing for Int Quick, I believe he is.
Yes, yeah. So Prosper was my support. I was playing ADC there. We had Trizzy, who's another friend of mine.
Broad and Friends, and Rise Gaming of recent.
Yeah. And then Death by Lollipops or DBL, I believe, who's retired, but another good guy played for Lucent, Eminem, a bunch of like other UK orgs. And then we had Chaz. I don't know if you know Chaz.
I don't think I do.
So Chaz is an Oceanic player who I think he's still playing, but he's played at MSI before.
Oh,
2021. Yes. So that was a fun experience to interact with somebody with that level of experience.
He was with that Pentanet team. Okay. Yeah, they had, what was that? There's that really annoying jungler's name. He always annoyed me. Forgot his name.
Yeah.
Maybe
I would not know off the top of my head.
Yeah. Maybe some people know. There was some like jungler who was like at MSI and was like shit talking a lot. I forgot his name. I think he's a guy who's still playing. I don't know.
Not Pabu, right?
Oh, I think it was Pabu. That might have been who I'm thinking of.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. but yeah, I mean, just actually looking at this Insomnia LAN, it's just interesting. All the different people, all the UKEL people we got. This random gray cabbage team. Don't know who this is, but it's got like Pop and QQR and Spark. Broad and Friends is there. They got Gov playing top lane. A really interesting one is they have Into the Breach playing there. Which, if you know anything about Into the Breach of the last couple years, there's a reason they're not around as much anymore. The guy kind of, I don't even remember what happened there. The guy like took the money. It happened like the guy took the money or something like that, or some big scandal because they were a big Counter-Strike, or it doesn't matter. You can Google what happened to Enter the Breach and you can find some video on it. But yeah, continue about the LANs.
Broad, that was the first, I believe it was the first LAN that Broad was a thing. That was just Governor and his mates wanted to make a team.
Okay.
And look at where they are now. So not too dissimilar to Ruddy as a whole.
Interesting.
Just taking like different trajectories. But Grey Cabbage specifically, that roster, like you will notice that the core is the same core as like the
as what Broad kind of was, recently.
Yeah, the Broad core. Sorry.
I found that really interesting years later.
For some strange reason.
Yeah.
So that core has been together for many years. Grey Cabbage is, I think they started off as, I think there was another name, but they were a group of players who all went to Warwick University. Because there was also a UK, or actually not just UK, I think it was just university-based tournament for League of Legends that they would also participate in. There's a bunch of, I don't think it was this LAN, I think it was the previous LAN.
The previous LAN they won it under Grey Warwick was their name. Yeah,
they had issues, not that team. I mean, the LAN had issues with scheduling, which resulted in some very like annoying stuff because they wanted to run both tournaments at the same time.
Okay,
and then they wanted to make sure that the Warwick University guys had that's an entirely different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, that roster and that core has been together for quite some time. They obviously enjoy playing together. I think I've hung out with them a few times. We've had drinks together. Great guys. But it was really enjoyable LAN. I got to play it, so that would have been my first time playing like on stage.
Okay.
Because we got to finals. But I think I wouldn't say I regret it. I wish I had a better, I'd taken a better mindset into it.
Okay.
Because I was very, very focused on winning, which was fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But in general, the guys, the team, and understandably so, like it's a LAN for fun, primarily. People don't care too much about the money. Obviously they want to win, but they want to enjoy themselves first.
Right.
So I think I took a slightly different mentality into it than everybody else did. And it made it less enjoyable for me and made me more annoyed that we lost. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not that important. It was fun playing the LAN. It was fun being on the team. I enjoyed playing with everybody. But it wasn't that deep. But this is something that I've had to work on contextualizing, like wins and losses, like just across my career. Like I remember on my first stint on Zerolag, but that was my first proper team, so I don't blame myself too much for it. There was a play that I made where I think I was playing Vayne, and the game was in like a pretty stable state, but I decided to go for a 1v1 on bot side, and it kind of flipped the game, not completely, but it made the game really hard after I lost the 1v1. And I remember being so upset that like I just after the series, not series, it was just an individual game. I turned off my computer and just sat under my desk because I was so upset at the fact that I had made that mistake, because I felt like I had let the team down.
Of course,
like it was like our game to win.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, you zoom out contextually, that 1v1 didn't matter that much. We were probably losing the game anyway. I think we were also not doing well in the split at that point, so it wasn't that important. But I think that's something individually as a player, people will have all sorts of different issues personally. They might be too competitive, not competitive enough, not practiced properly, etc., etc. For me, it's not focusing on like the right things, both like whilst playing and also after a win or after a loss, and contextualizing things properly. But this is when like coaching is important. I think I don't think I ever had a full set of coaching, but there's a sports psychologist on YouTube who puts out a lot of videos that helped me to navigate these things a little bit better, just so I can at least do things more healthily. Because whilst you're not in the upper rungs of esports, I think there's not that real support system available to you.
Agreed.
Unless you are outwardly seeking it. And even then, it's difficult, and you're probably going to have to pay like quite a lot of money for it. So
yeah, it's certainly something not established. I do love the fact I'm not paying you to say like how great coaching is. It just makes me feel better. It's very different from when I had.
It is important.
No, I agree. Of course, it's important.
Yeah.
It is just funny from the difference when I had Rusty Sniper on, and he's like, I don't think I've ever learned anything from a coach before. So very interesting dichotomy. I mean, not every coach is great, so I'm not like saying that like he didn't have some bad coaches.
I will say that he's not wrong. I think I will agree with him for the most part that a lot of coaches, especially in this level of esports, are like, I will go as far as to say just straight up paycheck stealers. They provide almost nothing to the team, and they have an inflated ego, sense of self-worth, don't actually know what any specific team or individual player like needs. Like he's not wrong. He's not wrong. I think I've been quite fortunate to work with coaches who all provide different things. Like a lot of the coaches I appreciate the most are the ones that work best on a personal level, just because it's very difficult unless you're an ex-player to have that like deep understanding of League of Legends as a whole. You can have a core understanding of the principles and do all this research, but that's why it's important to have head coaches, assistant coaches when available. Analysts are important. Like, obviously you can't have these if you don't have money, which is why this level of esports is very difficult for building yourself up if you're not navigating it as well as you can.
Right.
But it also might come from the fact that I follow the NBA very closely. I follow football decently well. I come from playing sports. Like, I understand how important coaching is. I studied psychology to A level. Like, it's less of a foreign concept to me. Whereas if you're just somebody who plays League and you're just like, well, this guy is telling me what to do, and he's never been high and low.
Exactly.
He doesn't understand anything. Like, that is a barrier itself as a coach. It's one of the reasons why I've had a lot of people ask me, it's like, oh, you should probably do coaching. Would you want to coach on this team? It's just, at the moment, absolutely not. And I also don't feel like I have the best temperament for it currently. But in the future, maybe. But it is incredibly important, and it's a super underappreciated. I wouldn't say, I think underappreciated is the best way to describe it as to how important it can be. And people need to understand it's not all just about understanding the game. You can be a great coach and tell your team, look, this is how we're doing Atacom plays, right? I've seen it played like this. I need you to do like this. I need you to copy the way that people build this way, or play waves 1 through 5. You know, that's an important aspect of coaching. But another important aspect is that interpersonal relationship within like the team, with your players, your analysts, you know, your coaching staff, everything, right? And I agree. Basically, I would agree for the most part with Rusty Sniper. It's just, it is also bad to push the narrative that coaching is a waste of time, because it's not. It's just, there are a lot of people who will push that narrative just by being bad at coaching. So
fair enough. Yeah, all this is great. Let me just, I want to sum up a quick points, and then I want to bring us a little bit back on topic, even though it's great. Sure. All the stuff's great. As coaching, obviously, as a coach, I'd love to hear like somebody speak about how good it is. I do feel that, like, you know, some coaches try to, you know, put in their philosophy of like how they think the meta is, or how they play the game, without like understanding the players, which I think is a more important part. Also, it is funny when you're like, I don't know if I've you know, some coaches are just paycheck stealers and stuff. I just immediately thought of Hayes. He's not a paycheck stealer. He's Venomcrest coach and he's great. But I just thought of like, what's he gonna say to this when he hears it? Because no, I'm sure Hayes is great. I doubt you'd have a problem with it.
This is a conversation I've had with him. He will agree with me. Yeah, Hayes is. I loved working with Hayes.
Yeah.
I would happily work with Hayes again. Hayes provides a very important aspect of coaching. I will leave it at that. I won't say any more, but I would happily work with Hayes again. I think teams would be lucky to have Hayes. but it's the same thing. Like every coach individually brings their own thing, assuming they're not a paycheck stealer, brings their own thing to a team, and it's important for when you're hiring them and when you're as a player going into a team environment or looking, should I join this team, to identify what works best for you and what works best for the players around you.
So
Is the diplomatic way to talk about it.
Yeah. I'm just making fun of Hayes. Now I've talked with him too. He also said
Who
you're.
doesn't enjoy making fun of Hayes?
He said you're a sweetheart and he just wants the best for you. So it would also be really funny if you're like if he said the same thing and you're like, I don't like Hayes, but nothing like that. We're not creating any drama here. To kind of pull back to the LAN, I just want to make a mention about I really find the transition of like, you being frustrated under your desk after making a bad play. I mean, I don't know if you're ADC or top, but you're playing Vayne, so it's not like
it was ADC.
Okay,
it could be either.
Yeah, exactly. But I've seen lots of players, with that same thing where they make a 2v1 or just either get frustrated themselves or like take their frustration out of the team if they can't handle it themselves. So just I love the fact that you kind of have gone through this like evolution of like understanding more of like what you need from like a mental level and like what you need to kind of keep your head in the right place. But because we got really off track and which isn't a bad thing, it's a great conversation. I just want to bring back to DonJake because because he's an interesting figure in the scene right now. And you say he's a good friend. I just want to know like a little bit, just kind of what's he like at the what was he like then at the very beginning of Ruddy Esports? Was he thinking like it was going to be like a bigger NLC org, or was he just kind of like a classic Insomnia LAN? Kind of talk to me about a little bit about that.
No, DonJake is like he is the very definition of ambitious.
Okay.
Like even when we were at the LAN, he was like, no, like I want to make this big thing. He was just as hypercritical of other organizations as he is now, at least I believe as he is now, where it's just like, I don't think other orgs are doing enough. They are, they have these issues with contracts. They're not doing enough social media. They're not doing enough content. Like they talk big, but they don't want to do this, that, and the other. Like it was the exact same on like a professional standpoint, like where it's just like, this is what he wants to do. This is what he thinks he can achieve with an organization that he is helming. And I think he's done fantastically. Like I don't think that anyone can really fault just how far he's come in a very short period of time. On a like personal level, he's largely the same. It just personally, like we used to go to the gym together. Like he's just Jake. Like I don't think. I think if anyone met him in real life, you would not be surprised by who you're talking to.
He doesn't put on airs. He's just him. Yeah.
No, he's just him. Like I think that's partially why he does so well. Like over the short period of time that he has been like pushing Ruddy, is because he's very authentic the way that he is.
Yeah, people love that. Just especially in esports when you don't get a lot of that nowadays. A genuine, authentic guy.
Yeah. I think he would be if the him from that LAN looked at where he is now, he would be disappointed that he hasn't done more. I think that's the level of ambition he has as a person, like running Ruddy. He just wants to keep going higher and higher and higher. So,
great way to put it. I mean, esports is it become an interesting place. You don't, have a lot of people who are like willing to like really shoot for the stars as much, especially from an org standpoint. But I think any business, any thing like this, it's really important to have, people who are, trying to shoot for the top and try to take those risks. I mean, you need risks in any business, any, community, any culture to kind of, bring yourself to the next level, bring something better out of the scene. Interesting perspective on it. It's interesting to know more about him. So I want to move a little bit more into you as a player. We haven't talked as much about that. Just like you actually in the game. Because I'm looking at your list. It says you played top lane for Lionscreed for, it was 2023 to like early 2024. So obviously, this kind of brings me back to the role in general. You swapped between top and bot seemingly, from what you've said, a decent amount.
I've been doing it I've been doing it basically ever since I started playing like semi-professional.
Right.
I've been going between top and ADC.
So what, starting with why you wanted to play bot at like the very beginning, what like kind of attracted you to that role more than any of the other roles? Because obviously you said, you know, back all the way back in the day, you played like, you know, you tried to play Riven, which probably meant top and mid. So what about like ADC, you know, at the very beginning of when you started semi-professional, interested you, and why is it, you know, why have you found it desirable to kind of go back and forth between that and the top lane?
So I think specifically for ADC, it's probably due to the fact that that's where you get to do the most cool stuff, like just on a mechanical level.
Right.
The champions I played, I have thousands and thousands and thousands of games on like Lucian and Ezreal. So it just kind of meant the most logical standpoint for me. Obviously, there was a time where we go back, you know, we had like Huni playing Lucian top and all these sorts of things, but kind of as top lane evolved, there's less and less skill expression on the professional. In solo queue, there's masses of skill expression, right? You can play all these solo queue stompy champs, right? But in professional play, there's less skill expression. I mean, you look at the current meta, you're rotating off of like Sion, Cassante, maybe you get a couple Aurora games, you know, here and there.
Ornn,
But,
you know.
and then obviously you've got people who
Renekton.
are specializing in stuff like Ornn. Yeah, you've got Renekton. Renekton is actually the first champion I ever played. Like when I was shown League of Legends, I was at a friend's house. He was like, "Look at this game." I picked Renekton. I was like, "Wow, this is really, really fun." So that the two roles that I always had the most affinity for were top and ADC. But I think ADC is probably just I like if I just pulled all the characters together, the characters I like the most are probably going to be primarily in ADC, and you get to do the most cool stuff. So it was a no-brainer when ADC was like the first one that I would go to.
Certainly, it's the role that, from a mechanical standpoint, yeah, you can definitely do the most kind of in a fight. Certainly, I've watched your games, and certainly you like your Lucian. You've clearly shown your thousands of hours on Lucian quite well.
Yeah, I wish I would get to play it more. But there's something about me and Lucian in comp where I almost never get to play it, and when I do, it's under the most ridiculous circumstances. I will not talk too much about like the specifics of the first time I got to play it in comp, but I was not too happy about the way that played out from a draft perspective. If anybody wants to go and look at it, you could probably figure it out, but I won't go into it. Either way, I love Lucian. I wish I could play it more. That's what I'll say about that.
For your time on Lionscreed, since it was like a 4-month period, were you playing top that whole time? And was it like the team needed you to play top that whole time? That's why you did it?
I believe, like I said, we both know this for lots of players, that it was a very... The accuracy on this is not 100%.
Of course.
So I believe I was there as a substitute. Yeah, I was there as a substitute top laner.
Okay.
I think for a little bit before I then played as their main team, and that was just for the Aurora Cup, which is the kind of in-between splits. And then it just counts as 4 months because I guess I was never... I don't remember...
Didn't leave or whatever, yeah.
Or even if there was a contract.
Yeah. It doesn't always mean you're playing for those 4 months. It could mean you play for a week and then you're just not somewhere else, so they just write it on there, exactly.
Yeah, it was a very short period. I have, like, very little recollection. I know I played some ADC for them as well. I'm pretty sure, at the very least in scrims. But, yeah, I don't have too many, like, specifics or memories of that time on Lionscreed, probably just because it was actually an even shorter period of time than the 4 months that's listed. So,
okay. Do you ever, since you've been playing mostly ADC, you know, especially this year, do you think you'll have any desire to ever go back to top again? Depending on like if, you know, skill expression gets better there, or do you think it's just going to be, you know, because a lot of people have been actually complaining about how kind of not useless in ADC is, but just maybe lack of feeling like impact.
Yeah.
At least that's you know, not saying anyone in particular, but some ADCs have told me that. So yeah, I don't know if top will ever be enticing to you again.
Yeah, there's a there is a tweet thread that has been made. I don't know whether or not you've seen it, but it doesn't directly mention me by name, but it shows
Okay.
one of my accounts.
Okay.
It's got like 100 and well, probably like 140,000 impressions.
Oh wow.
Which I think speaks to what the role is, and also speaks to how the community tends to react to certain things that they don't necessarily wrap their head around.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to go into it too much.
Fair.
But it does mean that if anyone is seeing this, yes, I have seen it. Just because I haven't responded to it doesn't mean I haven't seen it. I just don't think it's worth addressing, really, in any way. But as for top lane, I was actually going to be like swapping back to top lane
Okay.
before I played this split. And I did a bunch of trials for top lane. I had a couple of offers for top lane.
Interesting.
I just didn't like any of the offers really that much, and something wasn't quite clicking for me. So it was very fresh in my mind. I wasn't even intending to play this split at all, which is why I had only joined Gucci for the playoffs.
Right.
Like they approached me, and there were a couple of reasons I enjoy playing with Kurosh as well. So I wanted to see if I could, improve that roster and make it possible for us to go really far in playoffs. But there's always chance. For me, a very big thing ever since it was originally announced is the Nations Cup.
Mm-hmm.
I would absolutely love to play the Nations Cup. I know that there is a larger roster of players I would be competing for a spot for if I'm playing ADC. And I don't mind competition, but it's about weighing up like what do I consider important on a professional standpoint. I think playing for my country is like an important thing for me. It isn't for everybody.
Right.
So there's lots of different factors. I would never rule it out. There are some days where I think to myself, I would never ever play top lane ever again.
Right.
That role is horrific. I hate it so much. And there's some days where I'm like, it's not too bad.
Look, many players I've been around who are top players have, they go through the questions of why am I playing this shit? I'm done. We're uninstalling it. I've had players actually uninstall the game and then reinstall it. Obviously, there may be a little bit more angrier specimens to work with.
I'm sure I've done that at some point in time.
Right.
During playing League of Legends, but I can understand the frustration. I think I would say this. It's the classic of. Especially, this is coming from someone who's played both at a semi-professional level. The grass is always greener on the other side.
Right.
You play one, you will be annoyed at certain things with playing. I know that I get annoyed playing ADC, and I feel like I don't have enough of an impact over the early to mid game. If an early to mid game goes badly, like so badly that there is a hyper-fed tank in the top lane, and I can't kill it, no matter how well I'm doing in bot lane, like that's a frustration I can have as an ADC.
Right.
If I'm playing top lane and I have solo killed the enemy top laner twice, I've taken 4 of their plates, but the enemy bot lane is exceedingly fed on a very strong meta champion. I know, especially during prime Zeri, when Zeri was first released, I was primarily playing ADC, but when I was playing top lane, it felt unplayable. It felt completely unplayable. You wonder why you even bother playing at all. I think there's just positives and negatives to both. I think for me, that's one thing that I struggle to remind myself. I live very in the moment a lot of the time. So I will go, I will ride that emotion of, I hate, this role. And I will go and play 2 weeks on the other role and go, I hate this role. And I'll go back. So being on a team helps to kind of tether me to the role and be like, no, I am employed to do this, right? It doesn't matter how frustrated I get. This is, there's professional pride in it, right? It doesn't really matter what I think on an individual level. Plus, to be fair, it is just solo queue. Solo queue is important, but from a emotional standpoint, you do have to detach yourself a little bit and be like, okay, you can play 8 hours of solo queue and 6 hours of it can be terrible, but you just have to accept that that's part of the agreement, right? Everybody's going to have to deal with solo queue being terrible.
Yeah.
I think the two roles have their own issues, and it's you've got to decide what issues are more difficult for you.
Which ones you can kind of more handle, yeah.
Yeah. And also the other important thing is, which are you best at? If you're thinking from a practical standpoint, what role are you best at, what is going to give you the best chance to succeed. And sometimes I don't know, sometimes I question myself, but that was a big thing with the kind of period of time where I was very deep in sports psychology content,
Right.
which getting rid of that imposter syndrome, especially when you move very quickly through like divisions, like starting out in Division 1 meant that I had a lot of imposter syndrome to begin with, where it'd be like, I see all these established players, they've all peaked 1K, for like 6 seasons in a row. It's like, am I really meant to be here? But I think that a lot of people go through that both in esports and traditional sports as well. So it all kind of plays into this whole like sports psychology thing. We've just got to understand you as a person and find what works best for you.
That's a really, I mean, I've, done a little studying in sports psychology, and I'm like you, I have a background in sports. I've studied sports, especially sports coaching a great deal, and just how, great football managers, NBA coaches, how they worked.
Yeah.
You talked two interesting points, which is, first of all, is like, professional kind of, your professional job, whether you're getting paid or not, is to like sit through a lot of the pain. Yeah. It's not, because video games and because our world is so very instant gratification, a lot of people don't always do that. But I've had players at lower levels, get too frustrated because like things aren't going well immediately, and then not willing to like put up with the bad stuff. Not a lot of people are. And then, oh man, I just forgot what the other point was. I think I was just talking about the sports psychology aspect. Man, I forgot the point. I think it had to do with like knowing like who, just like what fits
works
the player.
best for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not everyone thinks of that. They think that that this is your role and this is what you're kind of tethered to.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like maybe willing to swap roles if it's something better. Like Dota is a game that has way more swapping of positions because all the heroes can be played at pretty much every position in the game, where here people don't always want to learn new champs and stuff like that. But yeah, it's an interesting way to think about it. So I want to move to 2025. So this has been the big year for you. I think there's been a lot happened for you as a player. Just you being able to play on bigger stages, more more eyes viewing you. I'm gonna obviously, because I was on the desk for your first, I guess really your only Venomcrest split in Four Nations winter of this year. First, tell me about kind of how that team, picked you up. Did Hayes himself recruit you? Did something else kind of bring you in? And what kind of interested you in this Venomcrest team?
I believe it was probably one of the more standard routes to playing. Like I just had been alerted to, hey, this team is doing tryouts. Would you like to try out? Went through the trials. I don't think there was anything. I think this was during a period of time where I wasn't really actively looking that hard. So I think they contacted me and said, do you want to do trials? And then after that, like set of initial trials, I was like, yeah, I enjoy playing with this roster. I think this is a very good roster. I think we got every player we wanted, because this is another thing where people really don't understand like how much changes from like day one of trials, or even day one of like a set roster, what you believe to be a set roster, to okay, this is the first game of the split.
Yep.
Or even the first game of the split to the last game of the split. Like you could have so many roster changes, you can have so many like draft philosophy changes. There can be so much changing, where on the outside it may just look like, okay, this is the team, this is what they do, this is how they draft, this is what it is. But in general, the forming of that team was pretty standard. I think there was nothing too crazy. It was just normal trials.
Nice to have at least one standard time where it's just, you get recruited,
Yeah,
that's all.
I mean, look, it is refreshing, because like the amount of BS you will go through, if you are either a current player or aspiring player, like below tier 1, just be ready for the most ridiculous. I have had teams. I don't remember the team. I would probably I probably wouldn't name them.
Don't
I would
need
think
to,
about naming.
Maybe it's good we don't remember them. Yeah.
If I remembered them, I may think about it.
Fair enough.
I had a team where I had a couple weeks of trials with them. This was for ADC. I did extremely well. It may be my best set of trials that I've ever done.
Nice.
And I asked for feedback after every trials, or after every single set of scrims, and I said, look, what did the coach think? Do you have any feedback for me? What could I have done better? This, that, the other. And after every one, especially after the last one, he said, coach, thinks you're great, and we had no negative feedback for you at all. I was like, okay, nice. Like, this is my first choice team, so I will keep that in mind. I have my other teams, like, say it, like, I'm waiting to hear back from them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear back from them. I know that the other, like, ADC I'm trialing against is a lot younger than me, and I don't hear back from them until I eventually chase them, and they go, yeah, sorry, we went with the other ADC. And on paper and within the scrims, because a lot of them were in-house trials where you were playing, directly against your opponent, like that you were trialing against, there was no logical reason why you wouldn't go with me. And I am 99% sure it is just because of my age. Because I'm 25 now, and the stigma that is attached, especially for ADC, I think the other role that it's attached to is for mid lane as well, because these are highly mechanical roles. The stigma that is attached to age in esports is sickening to me, especially when it has very little basis in reality. Let's not even talk about science. Let's not talk about trying to relate it to traditional sports, because you are not dealing with the same physical prime or physical breakdown that you would have as a player going into their let's say late 20s, early 30s. We're not looking at the difference in roles. You think about if you go to football, a goalkeeper is in their prime in their early 30s to mid 30s. And that's because it's a less demanding physical role. You don't have the same miles, the same wear and tear. You look at, I'm not going to use outliers like LeBron because that's easy, right? You just look at any player in the NBA. When are they reaching their peak? Well, they're reaching their peak in their late 20s, 28, 29,
Yeah,
30,
mid to late
31,
20s
32.
is usually about when a player reaches, like, is meant to reach their peak, before physicality starts breaking them down.
So unless the thought process for an organization is, I want this player now so I can build them up and have them come through my organization, and I want them to be with my team for a long time, unless that is the thought process you are going with, it doesn't make any logical sense at all to be prioritizing younger players unless they're cheaper. And I assure you, especially in my case, you could not find a cheaper player for a lot of these teams. So it's just something that stuck with me, because obviously it impacts me. And I think a lot of players, all the way up until tier 1, right? Like, I'm not talking, there's no discrepancy. Like, the higher that you get, sure, you get a little bit more leeway, right? But I just think that it's something that really needs to change, especially given the fact that there's no basis in reality unless you are running a player, let's say like a T1 Academy player, let's look at like Smash or Poby, unless you are running them through your organization from the ground up, makes perfect sense. Got no issue with that, right? That's not what's happening, especially in like tier 2 play. It is, I don't know where it comes from. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know how we can genuinely be considering that just being younger equals better mechanics. Being younger may equal like a higher skill ceiling in a lot of situations, but outside of that, I don't know. But I want to be the outlier that can change that. That's always been like a big motivating factor for me as a player. Given that I came back into playing, it will have been when I was 20, 21, 22, which is a late start for like playing in tier 2, tier 1. So that's something that motivates me, because it's a stigma that if I do make it, I want to work to remove that, because it's unfairly stopping a lot of talent from entering the scene. It's a big tangent, but I think it's something that I really want to be changed.
No, not the tangent I expected, but a very interesting tangent. And I'll try to, maybe I can answer a little bit of the question of, but I'll speak to that a bit as well. Certainly, I see teams, at least the teams I've coached, I don't usually focus on age. If anything, I sometimes don't like the immaturity of a younger player, because especially if they haven't been on a team, it it depends on a lot of things. But age doesn't always mean maturity. And there's a quote from Skyfall, which is what age doesn't always mean efficiency, and then youth doesn't always mean innovation. Which you can kind of say it like that. I mean, I think especially in the Korean scene, their turnover rate is insane. Where it's just like they've gotten a bit better in the last couple of years of like keeping more veteran talents on there. It's why Faker's such a valuable player, not just in the game but outside of the game. But their turnover rate was so high of just trying to find like the next young great players, and there's so many young people in there. It does feel like Europe kind of has that issue right now because the region is kind of weaker. It's there's so much like turnover of different players, not a ton of consistency except for like the Caps, and I guess Larson's pretty tenured even though he's always on kind of rougher teams than Caps is. I think that a lot of people want to find like the next young person that can be brought up, and maybe think that like people are too old. But I do think it's something that is a bit ridiculous because you don't like completely like throw out your like hands or your just your ability once you get older. Like maybe your mechanics are a little bit worse. Like if you look in Counter-Strike, maybe like the 35-year-old player who still has really good mechanics, maybe they're not going to be Donk, who's 18 and
that's
incredible.
the one I didn't even talk about. Like you just go and you look at CS, right? Like look at the average age of like a tier 1, and I mean truly tier 1 team. Like these guys have been around for a very, very long time. You don't have to be, what is it, Monazy? Like, you don't have to always be that, like, super young, like, prodigal player.
Right.
Like, that's fine. And, like, they will always be an incredibly important, both, like, player within a specific team and also an incredibly important archetype. Perhaps the perfect archetype, right? Everybody would love to be able to scout this 15, 16, 17-year-old prodigy who is just as good, if not better, than the players who have been around for a long time. But there's not that many out there. If there were, like you're going to be, it's like finding you gold, right? Like obviously you want to like latch onto that, but you're not always the person who's going to be able to correctly identify it. And also there's a player, I don't know what name he was going on to under when I was playing with him in GLL. Let me just double check. He was going under Tom, right? But Toffee is his tag now, right? And he's playing for BDS Academy. Like, he was a young player. He's 20 now. So when he was playing on Zerolag, he will have been 17, I think. Like, that is a prodigal player, right? That is someone who's been correctly identified as a very young talent that if you get him into the tier 1 scene young enough and coach him correctly, you will gain, like, there's something to be gained there as a player. But not everybody is him. And I think that's the important thing, that you're not a multi-million-dollar like franchise that has the ability to employ scouts that make an awful lot of money. Like you're just a guy, and you won't always get it right. And sometimes if every single split that you do is one and done, because like we know this, right? Almost every split is one and done. Teams will come in, players will come in. You will play one split for the team, and then the turnover rate is gone. Correct. And then you'll have almost a completely fresh team by the time you get to the next split. This is especially true for leagues like UKEL, NLC. I think you go from one NLC split to the next NLC split. The strength of the rosters is completely different. The actual players on the rosters are completely different. So thinking long term doesn't make sense. I just thought that was important to add since you pointed out the CS analogy.
Yeah, I mean, maybe people will be like, "Oh, Counter-Strike's a different game or whatever." But I mean, you've got people in Dota like Puppy who are 35 years old. I mean, Ame's one of the greatest Chinese players ever, and he's playing a carry position, which is obviously more mechanical, and he's in his late 20s, still being amazing and being arguably the best player in the world. So I think everyone wants to try to find like the next. The next Donk. They certainly are trying to do that in CS, which is a bit silly. I think for years people have been trying to find the next Caps, because Caps kind of came in and immediately was maybe between him and Perks the best mid laner. But yeah. I think people don't understand. Maybe
again, when you have the bigger orgs, people like Vladdy show up, right? Like I think Vladdy is like a good example of the potential, like, next caps, right, has been around in like the tier 2 scene long enough, that was brought in younger, and has shown, like, when you actually bring him up to tier 1 as in LEC, that he could potentially be. But how many times have we seen people try to do this with like, especially mid laners that you point out? How many times has it worked out? Like,
do we even remember
it's
Leader
few and far
anymore?
between.
Does anyone remember Leader?
Well,
Where'd he go?
Exactly. And you claim, like, you have these organizations who claim that they are in it for the long haul with players like this. And the Leader situation upsets me, because his career did get kneecapped, but he's a specialist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are specialists in every single role.
Right.
And then somehow he's being, I don't know, marked down on being a specialist when you don't want to build around it. I don't know. It's strange. It's just strange more than anything else. So.
It's certainly a weird esports world. Just an odd part of it. I'd actually, maybe another time we can talk more about that. I do want to keep. I want to keep us on. Again, great tangents. I want to keep us back to UKEL. So this
Sure.
This UKEL Winter Split. This is you might like this part because. I don't want to be too biased in my interviews, but I do want to be honest in terms of what I saw as a caster. So I am going to talk you up a bit. And your Venomcrest team splattered everybody in this Winter Split. I mean, nobody really had a chance. I think you won every single game in playoffs and in there. You were the MVP of the split and clearly the MVP of the split. You were the best player in UKEL. I think you were, the only player, except for maybe the ADC of Broad and Friends, Sin, who was decent. Bust in the top lane. I actually wanted to interview Bust. Funny enough, he didn't want to. But Bust in the
That
top.
doesn't surprise me.
Bust in the top lane. I thought was pretty good as well. But yeah, I mean, your team in general was just way better. I want to talk a little bit about the team because from what I watched there, I felt your team was. Let's just say your team was a team. In other words, you actually were, maybe you and Broad were the only teams I saw who had like a decent understanding of macro, or like who you had a good understanding of what you wanted to play around. It was very common. You would kind of just build up your early game and then just kind of enable you to get like a couple kills, like especially in this early 2025 meta, Jinx was super looked after. So if you got your Jinx, I mean, it was game over. You got a couple kills on that and you were looking at 11-0, 12-0 games over and over again. Just kind of talk me through kind of what it was like with this Venomcrest team, just kind of if you felt like there was good macro, you guys were just winging it, and just, kind of tell me about how you felt the competition was, during this Winter Split.
I think we did have good macro. I would say a lot of that just came from we gelled quite well as a group, which meant that there was a lot less that we had to focus on. We were all individually playing well, and then we all understood our roles within the team. I don't know if Bust has spoken about this. I mentioned this to Loopy, actually. I think one of the last times we did scrims. But Bust was playing on like 150 ping, maybe 200 ping for almost all of the, like, every game.
I know he's from the Faroe Islands, but is he located there right now? Like in the Faroes?
I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head. He was at the time.
Okay.
But I don't remember why his internet was so bad. But that also meant that it made it a lot easier for us to like all be like, okay, we are playing a bot-centric team with scaling mid laners and proactive junglers with tanks and top lane. Because again, Bust, fantastic player, but he's also fighting like the demons of trying to play on 200 ping. And he never complained once, like not even once. We didn't even know. I don't think he even told us until quite late. So we gelled very quickly. We could focus on macro more than anything else. And yeah, it was just one of those teams which just worked. I also think, again, a good showcase is I then went on to play in NLC, and Bust and Air are now currently playing in NLC.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, so I think it was one of those situations where we had a roster that was kind of above the league on an average skill level anyway. So
yeah, sometimes you just get a roster that's just maybe a little bit above. Maybe you get the right players at the right time who are
Yeah.
About to like kind of go to the next level. So what was I going to ask about? This final of UKEL, this was played on LAN, correct? Right? Or was this not? Was this online? The winter one.
This was LAN, but I couldn't make it. At the
Okay.
time, I was pretty ill. I don't remember if it was like a cold or flu or something. I just remember that there was no way I was going to be able to travel.
Okay.
So I think everyone except me and Bus went. Bus just couldn't feasibly get there, and so Air, Phrase, Hayes was there. Oh no, I don't think our support went either.
Okay.
But we swapped supports a few different times anyway, just because of like scheduling rather than anything else.
Okay. Interesting. I was going to ask you about playing on LAN, but unfortunately that didn't happen.
I mean, I could recount my Insomnia LAN experience, but LAN is always a very different experience,
Right?
And you'll never know until you truly play it. I think it is one of those things. You don't know how you're going to perform on LAN until you play. Some players, it doesn't make much difference. I don't think it made much difference for me at Insomnia, but I know some players will struggle with that. Some people have very specific. I might be worse now because I am like very I want to be very precise with how my mouse and my mouse mat and my keyboard is all laid out.
Right.
You know, it's all.
Yeah.
But back then I wasn't that precise. But yeah, LAN is always very different, and I think players won't necessarily know how different it is. Like stage nerves is a thing. Like it just is. So.
Yeah, I think people don't even realize, like, with or without a crowd, it can, like, you still just get different nerves because you're in person, next to the person, different stuff. I mean, I like the fact you have a bit of a routine. I think that helps a lot with that. So NLC, let's talk about NLC because this is really interesting to me. It's sometimes unfortunate that you have a player who does really well at a lower level and you are just, crushing everybody in your path. It's like, okay, now an NLC team brings you on and it does not go that well. To sugarcoat it. I mean, you go from UKEL, you go from beating up Broad and friends with their funny Instagram posts. They're not Instagram, TikTok or whatever. I'm not social media. All the stuff. Yeah, Broad loves to have a bit of a laugh, as I do with them as well. Now it's NLC. Oh, what's your first match going to be? Oh, it's Los Ratones against people who have been to the World Championship of League before, and in the case of Reckless, been to the finals. Kind of talk to me just about how it was kind of entering, NLC, how, kind of that team you were with was, and just kind of how that, at least the first game with Los Ratones was, because they're the big team. Was it nervous at all playing against them? Was it just, natural, or was it just like, kind of, you were just kind of like happy to be there and you're just like, oh no, this is going to be really tough. How did that whole thing go? Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of our players had a very different kind of reaction to that being the case. For me, I was just kind of hyped for it. Like I genuinely went in, which is funny to say in hindsight, given the fact that we didn't win a single game the entire split.
Right.
But I genuinely thought we were going to like surprise a lot of people positively and do really, really well. Our scrims were going well. We were making really good progress. We were scrimming too much, but we were scrimming like a lot. We were doing like 4, maybe 5 scrim sessions a week, but we were seeing improvement, and we had a very specific plan for Los Ratones, and we just didn't execute the plan. And when we didn't execute the plan, when we got to game 2, heads went down, and it's just one of those things where the fact that it was Los Ratones first, I think, made it so much worse when it went the way that it did.
Start on the wrong foot, yeah.
A lot of people, like, you can never say I'm not in my teammates' heads, but it feels like a lot of people had issues getting back, like, to the place they needed to be mentally for the rest of the split. It was tough. I still think that I did relatively well individually. I think obviously you can always do more and you can always do better. There are like lots of moments where there are things that I wish that I had done better, maybe drafted differently, maybe been a bit more decisive with saying for things that I would want within the team. But hindsight is always going to be 2020. But I do think, yeah, the lost returners, it's one of those things where things went downhill in a team environment situation very quickly, especially when you combine that with the fact that we were scrimming so much that it just kind of compounded like super, super fast. I wouldn't say it's not like there was a point where I think like where people gave up, but it felt like getting the team dynamic back to that positive kind of outlook of like we can really do some damage here when people aren't expecting much from us. It was difficult, very, very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, of all teams to start with, it's quite the difficult one.
Yeah. It depends on. I just wanted to say it depends on personnel as well.
Right.
Like for me, I would always love to start lost returners, but we also had a support who had me and my support. We had issues gelling to begin with. Eventually, we became like very close, and I think we became a lot better as the split went on. But he had like stuff going on IRL that meant that there were some scrims that he had to miss or we had to be paused, which was through no fault of his own. We had a top laner who it was his first split ever, like full stop, anywhere at all.
Okay.
We had a mid laner who, understandably, like we had issues because we were all kind of adapting to each other. I think it was a roster where the players simply didn't fit together as well. But it was a very hastily put together roster as well. So I think that came into it where we didn't necessarily know what we were getting into. We didn't know how each other played before we just started scrimming. We kind of got thrown directly into the fire. So there are lots of issues. And I think it's, again, individually, we were just a group of players that didn't mesh. But yeah, Lost Returners' first game, for me, great. For some of the other players, great. For some of the other players, not so much, where it's like, oh shit. It's kind of, it's all going down immediately, you know?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Yeah, it's also interesting because looking here, yeah, you got like a new team. It's forming. You know, maybe it's not every player's right. You got some new people here, but hey, you and the support are meshing. How's it going to go for next split? Nobody's on the Rich Gang, you know, of that now. All you are gone.
No. But this is what we were talking about before. Almost every single split is one and done. Just one and done for almost every team. I'm sure if you went and you looked back at the NLC rosters from that split and compared them to the next split, there's almost no overlap in players, other than like Lost Returners. Ruddy wasn't the same team at all. I don't think, maybe there was overlap with, I don't even know off the top of my head. Maybe there will have been overlap with like Bulldog.
Yeah, because I think Kasing is at least still
Nord.
there. Yeah, Nord probably as well too. Yeah,
yeah. It's just the way that it is in tier 2. Like, I don't know how to change that. I'm to a certain extent, I am somewhat hypocritical because I don't necessarily like signing on to like long projects in tier 2, but that's also because nobody else signs on to long. It's one of those things where it's like self-perpetuating.
right.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I don't know. It's not necessarily objectively a bad thing, but it does mean that you will end up with wildly like different levels of performance from split to split.
I think a lot of these NLC teams, because nobody seems to, it seems to be just like Los Rotondes, just, you know, fun little play league where they just come in, play whatever, and then just win. And I think teams are just trying to build something to try to win that. I think it has to be, they just, you know, build, you know, have a couple, you know, a roster just stays with the same few people and just kind of build, you know, something over and over again. I mean, I think of it like in Valorant, where at the very beginning of Valorant, you know, lots of Counter-Strike players came in and were like doing really well, and then eventually the scene built up. All the new Valorant kids came in, and then they were the ones who like took over, and then all the old kind of heads stuck away. I think that like finding the next, you know, you're not going to have players who have the competitive experience of a lot of these guys, you know, like Nemesis and like Reckless, you know, like Crowny. I think it has to be like something built up over time. But I understand like the hypocritical point where you're like, you know, like, oh, I didn't want to sign on it for either. But you are right that like if nobody else is, what's the point of me doing it? It's just like kind of wasting, you know, there's other things, you know, other teams I could be playing for or doing something else in that regard.
I would just say that the last thing I wanted to say on that is at least do what Ruddy was doing, where if you aren't positive that you can win the league, because obviously it's difficult, right, with lost returners in the league, then at least leverage the popularity, the viewership into something. Make content, like I enjoyed all of the content surrounding like Dom and Jake, like with the post game stuff. Like, do something, right? Like
Yeah,
maybe I've been
do
a
what
bit
Broad does. I mean,
yeah. Like Broad's a fantastic example. Maybe I've been a bit DonJake pilled by like talking to him so much about it, but just do something. Like have some sort of personality within the scene. Like, because at the bare minimum, if you're not winning, then you have a fan base.
right.
Like, you have something.
You gotta have something to like build from or build with. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a bit. I want to kind of start tabling the conversation just in general. It's been great, but we do got to wrap up. But I think I will kind of ask you just a couple final points. But obviously, we'll get to the very last and most recent team of yours, which is Good Chi. Only a few days there. I mean, clearly it was rushed. Even I was surprised to be like, oh, they're picking him up a bit suddenly. Good Chi had kind of a meh split in Four Nations. I think they came into playoffs a little bit weaker than they wanted to be, and obviously they wanted to grab you. How did they just were like, well, you're sitting around doing nothing. Let's try to grab Rhythm real quick. Did you like have any time to prepare, or was it just kind of like hastily thrown together? Let's see what we can do.
So I had done a bunch of trials for a couple UKEL teams as top lane before the split. Then when I decided that I wasn't going to play the split at all, I was just focusing on real life stuff.
Right, of course.
Then towards the, it wasn't quite at the beginning of playoffs, but towards the end of the split, I had been contacted by Good Chi, and they said that they wanted to potentially make some changes. I did some trials with them, wasn't positive on like joining until like playoffs had come around.
Right.
Oh, and I liked I really enjoyed like chatting with Sovonix. I enjoyed Goldie, like the coach. Obviously, I like Kurosh. I now like I think Loopy's great.
Yeah.
Super underrated. The project, I was like, the worst case scenario is we do poorly. It's a bit of a blemish, but I enjoyed myself. Right. So, but yeah, it was very sudden. I think maybe a couple, like maybe 2 scrim sessions before I joined, but even that was with like mix and matching with potential other roster changes. Then some roster changes like happened. Obviously, we had Forshaw come into the jungle, so it was all very kind of hectic and last minute. Yeah.
Well, you at least did somewhat well. I mean, you got the 2-0 win over Bulldog, and then just unfortunately lost to Broad. Who's got Spark is quite a good ADC, and might also be a potential NLC talent. But obviously, as a team, a little bit more been together longer.
Yeah, I said this to the guys afterwards, that we genuinely should be proud about the improvement that we made in the short period of time that we had. Obviously, it sucks to lose, and especially me. I learned a lot about being the more positive force within a team, like the positive vocal force, given that had been something that I had struggled with. With the way that the roster was, I had to be the super positive one, which is fine. And I mean that genuinely when I say that we made a lot of progress. Like if people had seen our scrims from like when I had first joined to our scrims, or even the officials from like the last set of playoffs, it just is one of those things where we did what we could with the time we had available.
Right.
So I hate it. I hate losing. I always hate losing. I'm never going to change. I will always hate losing. But I am genuinely proud of how far we had come with the short amount of time we worked together. So,
well, great way to put it, because certainly not an easy situation to be put in. I'm going to put everything together. It's been a great talk. You have been very, an interesting person to hear ramble on. Don't feel too bad about rambling. I think it's all been very interesting. You're somebody who is, clearly very much cares about the scene, is very bright in terms of like what players actually need, the psychology that goes into it. Obviously, from watching just from the eyes alone, you're an extremely skilled player. I think that Hayes has even told me that he thinks you're good enough to go all the way to the LEC one day, and I think you are too. And I'm just curious what because maybe Gucci won't be forever. Maybe you'll walk away, but maybe you'll be kind of done until 2026. But I hope NLC is in your future. But do you feel like not only NLC in your future, but do you feel like that the LEC itself could be in your future?
I 100% feel like if I can find that motivation to go all in again, and it's coming back. I had a period of time just because of IRL stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had to take some time away, but now that kind of everything's leveled out with me at home, it means that I'm getting that motivation to dial back in. People won't realize it, but when I have the hate threads made, or when I have the people who tell me to go on a live myself, or all these different things,
normal League of Legends
it does
things,
the opposite. Yeah, like it really motivates me. So I think I'm getting that. I'm motivated a lot by like almost like, I won't say anger, but like passion,
right?
Like very
Fire,
strong
yeah.
passion. Yeah. So that's coming back, and 100%. I could, when I'm in that mode, put me in world finals, right? Put me in world finals when I'm in that mode. But yeah, I would absolutely, I absolutely think if I play 100%, I can make it happen for sure.
Well, this has been a very insightful talk, a great talk. I've loved having you. And yeah, I've nothing. It always makes me happy seeing a player, a lower tier player having such passion, like myself, wanting to get to the very top. So it's been great talking with you, Rhythm. I definitely hope to see you in the LEC one day. Hopefully, maybe I'll be coaching you one day, because I would love to have you there. But yeah, thank you for the talk. Maybe one of these will be in the future. I don't know, because I should have a schedule about talking with people more and finding other players. Maybe not an ADC. Not saying I don't love ADCs, but let's at least mix it up, because then it's just going to be the ADC.
We're a special breed.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love the special breed of the ADCs, but eventually, if I just have them all, it's going to be the ADC show, and people are going to be like, "This is a sub ADC show," and it's like, I don't, gotta have players of all kind. But thank you, Rhythm. Hope to see you soon with another team, and see everybody later.